just as long as you stand by me.
Well, there's no doubt that raising a child with autism is a challenge, often regardless where they are on the autism spectrum. A new study has found there is a huge improvement in the whole experience when parents are allowed to be involved in the cognitive behaviour therapy with their children. So joining us this evening to talk about this is the York University professor behind the study, Dr. Jonathan Weiss, and also a mom who was part of the study itself, Jessica Janarone. Welcome to you both.
Hi there. Thank you.
Dr. Weiss, you're the chair in autism spectrum disorders treatment and care research at York University. Once you get through the mouthful, how significant are these results? Were you surprised?
We hope that there would be these kinds of results when we undertook the study 3 years ago. When we involved these 67 families over the course of this intervention, we were really impressed with the indirect outcomes for parents, the benefits for parents. This is really important because it's the first time that parents were not only involved in their kids' day-to-day and session-to-session treatment, but that we were able to show that they benefited themselves with their own mental health, with their perceptions of their children, et cetera. So that's really remarkable. It's not just about benefiting the kids, it's about benefiting the whole family.
Well, what is the long-term impact for families who have an autistic member?
So we know already that many children with autism experience emotional and behavioral difficulties, between 50 and 70% at any one moment in time. And we know that things like cognitive behavior therapy can be helpful for their kids in equipping them to manage stressful situations better. The impact of this kind of intervention shows that including parents in the process can help empower them to be more resilient as stressful things happen in their lives over the long term.
What prompted this study? Were you concerned with the way autistic children were not benefiting from their therapy as well as you thought they should, or what?
So I'm not only a researcher, but also a clinician. And in the training, I've been trained to use this cognitive behavior therapy before. And my experience has been that many kids can benefit, but often parents were left in the waiting room. And they were very much wanting to be a part of the intervention, having a lot to contribute and to say. So it inspired me to co-develop this kind of new process where parents could be involved, not just at the beginning, at the end, but in every moment of a session as a co-therapist.
All right, Jessica, let's talk to you. Tell us your story.
So, my son was diagnosed with autism around age 8, so fairly late. And we went through the whole gamut of he has a behavior problem, something's wrong with him, we don't know what's wrong with him. And it was, for us, it opened so many doors when we finally got the diagnosis that he was on the spectrum. And what it did was allow us to sort of focus, okay, how are we going to deal with this as a family? My experience was exactly what Dr. Weiss just went through. Every time Noah went to therapy or some sort of counseling, I sat in the waiting room with his sister, and he went in for 50 minutes. I got to join for the last 5, and then I hoped it worked. Or I went home with a tip sheet. And I couldn't practice it with him. We didn't have common language. Sometimes the tip sheet wouldn't work. And it was like just shooting darts, hoping that something landed and helped him at some point. And it wasn't until we went through this research program where I was able to participate in it with Noah and actually understand what happens in that room and the things that he's learning and how I can help facilitate that as his parent.
It just doesn't make sense to me that this wasn't always done this way.
For us, and I've said it to many people, what we accomplished in 6 months is more than we accomplished in 10 years. Because when you're a parent and you're part of that and you're listening to your child telling you this is what works, this is what doesn't work, listening to how the therapist is talking to them and working through issues, you're absorbing so much and you're seeing what works and doesn't work and you're talking through it and you have that common language in therapy, in the home, you take it to the school, night and day difference. But it's the first time I'd ever been invited into the room with him to talk through some of these strategies.
Well, Professor Weiss, you must have thought, why didn't we think about this before? Because the children are actually with their parents. the other 23 hours.
That's right. You know, kids don't develop in isolation. They don't develop in a vacuum. Healthy kids develop when families are healthier as well. So if we can support not only the child, but also the larger family unit in coping with stressful situations and helping each other, then it makes total sense that we would see a greater benefit. Now, this isn't the only intervention to involve parents for kids with autism, but this is the first study to actually document the benefits, not for the kids, but for parents.
So will this now become an accepted practice? What happens? You've done the research, you've got the results showing that everybody benefits to a much greater degree. Will parents be able to walk in now to their therapist wherever they are and say, no, I want to be part of this?
While that decision might not happen overnight, part of sharing these results and convincing clinicians and decision makers about what kind of interventions should they fund and should they employ in their practice, this provides much greater emphasis on looking for existing interventions that have that kind of supportive involvement for parents. So if we can be a part of that to help advocate for those kinds of interventions that support parents along the process for caring for themselves and for their children, then I think that's a remarkable outcome of this kind of research.
Well, you must have groups that have approached you, because when you're the mother of an 8-year-old, you sort of feel like you don't have a lot of time. You don't want to wait for 10 years until somebody passes a bill, or you want it now because your child is developing now. So what should parents do, or where should they go to put pressure to have this implemented?
That's a great question. There are 2 points that I'll suggest. The first is, if people are seeking treatment, seeking support for their children, to ask those clinicians, ask those therapists, how can I be involved in this? How can I help you on a day-to-day level to help my child better? And as well, be aware of the kind of needs that parents have to be able to articulate, not only is my child struggling or has these kinds of difficulties, but these are the kinds of things that I might benefit from as well.
Is there a way that parents can access the research that came out? It's called the SASOR program. Is that right? That they can access the research, maybe take it to those clinicians and say, here, have you seen this?
So the Secret Agent Society, it's a spy-themed intervention, was developed by Dr. Renee Beaumont at the University of Queensland in Australia. And the Secret Agent Society is a social skills intervention primarily for kids on the spectrum, and that's available through purchase through that organization. What's great about my job as a research chair is that I didn't develop this intervention. I don't have a stake in it. I get to evaluate and test whether these things are helpful. So this version, the operation regulation version of the intervention, isn't publicly available yet, but it's this kind of research to show what's effective first that enables individuals like Dr. Renee Beaumont to scale it up and make it accessible to the public. So it will be, I hope.
So what would you tell parents who are now going to be probably bombarding us? Are we going to give them your phone number? Or where should they go?
You know, for me, what I would tell parents is I think I've learned a lot from my own coping strategies that I can carry through our family. But I'll ask the question now. You know, we have a wonderful therapist, and I will ask if I can sit in that room. And I feel more empowered to question, if the answer is no, why I can't be a part of it. My personal experience, I mean, we've shared what we learned with the school that we go to. They've been so incredibly receptive, and we've carried it over, and they love the resources, and they've looked at it, and in some cases they've employed it with the entire classroom, some of the things we've learned. So to ask the school to do the research, to ask the therapist, certainly now knowing what I know, I would be a lot more vocal, and I'd ask a lot of questions.
How has your relationship with Noah changed?
You know, we are a lot less frustrated because before, when we would hit a snag or we'd have a difficult moment, you know, you're pulling a million things out of your pocket hoping something works. And now, based on what we've gone through, I can sort of very quickly assess, here's where we're at. I know strategy A, B, and C are not going to work in this moment. I can skip right to D. And what used to take an hour takes 2 minutes to get through. The level of frustration has gone down. The level of happiness and security has gone way, way up.
That must make you very happy, Dr. Weiss.
I'm delighted by those kind of examples, because I think it brings to life the kind of experiences that we're seeing with the numbers, with the science behind what we're studying. So it's a perfect complement to the kind of results that we're seeing.
Dr. Weiss and Jessica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Again, where can people go to access any information on this?
So depending on where they're listening from, they can certainly first by contacting their autism advocacy organization in their region. They can also, contact me at York University. There's an ASD mental health blog that then they can go check out to learn about this research as well as other research about improving the mental health of people with autism. That might be particularly useful.
This is what she said. Stay with us.